Of all the approaches that are out there, why did you choose ACT?
Number one, it's transdiagnostic. So I think it's a simple, elegant method that you can use with anyone. Connected with that, it's kind of goes beyond diagnosis. I think it's a model of human function. I like the idea that it starts from a place of you're a kind of normal human being, and how can we make you the best version of yourself, rather than some other approaches which are you are messed up, you've got problems, how can we sort of bring you back to a kind of equilibrium. I like the idea that it starts with assuming that people are functioning, and it's about making them better versions of themselves. The other thing I like is that it gives you a simple set of processes that you can work with. So, there are six of them. What if I put this back to you? Let's just start with one of them, diffusion. What would be your favorite diffusion exercise?
Good question. There's loads out there. I find I've kind of have a sort of a toolkit of go-tos. One of my absolute go-tos is the noticing your mind. I love that phrase. I'm noticing, I'm having the thought that. It's just really simple, super easy, and it's a nice way to introduce the idea without over-explaining it. And I find people kind of get it, this sort of idea that see their thought in action and they start to notice it. And even just saying the phrase, I'm noticing that I'm having the thought that starts to build in that kind of metaphorical distance from thinking. All right, back to you, zooming around the hexaflex. The next process is acceptance. What's your favorite go-to tool or technique for acceptance?
This is a little complicated because I think the different components of the model kind of relate. So I think my favorite go-to exercise is the two sides of the paper. So invite people to, if they voice a difficult thought, like I don't know, I'm a loser or something, we put that on one side of a piece of paper, and then we flip it over and I ask them to put down on the other side, like what's the value that's reflected in that? So like what is so important that this thought causes you so much distress? So we get a kind of like values and pain on one side of a piece of paper, setting it up then as the idea that like this thought is kind of like the price tag of caring about this thing. And I find that that sort of changes the way people think about it. Like it's not the enemy, it's more like a messenger, or it's like a reminder of the things that I care about and that matter to me. So where are we? Contact with the present moment then. So how do you deal with that? What's your go-to for helping people be more present?
I'm massively resisting the urge to say it depends. So I'm going to do that and make space for that. My favorite go-to is using technology. And I guess you could call it like the mindfulness of your phone. Just phones are just, we're just so engaged in them so automatically on autopilot. So I love to do an exercise of just slowing down, engaging with a phone in a careful and deliberate way. Opening up your phone, opening up your messages and responding slowly and noticing the experience in the here and now. I find that as a sort of really super practical way that helps people get it, but also translate it into real life. Moving around, next process on the hexagon would be values. What's your go-to values tool or technique?
Well, this is like a perfect cue to plug our book because one of the things we put in there was this top 10 moments exercise, which is the idea you ask people to kind of write top 10 moments, like a highlights reel of their life. Um, if you could reduce your life just to these top 10 moments, the moments where you felt most connected to what really matters in life. And yeah, and then they come back with this list, and then we can kind of ask them to say, well, what if I didn't ask you for a top 10? What if it was a top five? And we can whittle it down, and we can really kind of cut to the chase in terms of the sort of moments in life that really taught you something about what's really important. So that's my go-to one. It takes a little time, and I think it's worth it. Values. So they are of limited value unless you do something about them, right? So the committed action piece. So yeah, putting values into action. What do you do with that?
Yeah, that's kind of like the sort of rubber hitting the road part of the values work, right? Uh, there's honestly, I usually kind of keep it simple and like having done sort of some values work, like the tool or technique you just described before, like top 10 moments. Like usually I would just sort of bring in a question, like now you've identified that. What's one small thing you could do to move in that direction, or build out this picture and add a little bit more color or vitality to this picture that's about values. And sometimes it's like, if I'm working with someone, it might be just as I'm talking to them, like, could you think about doing something like right now here with me that would move you? Just because it means that it brings it alive. It helps people realize it's not sort of some abstract thing that can happen, way down in the future when I feel a bit better. But, our values can be enacted upon right in this moment. It could be a small thing like, I open up a little bit more, or I take a breath, or I make a conscious decision to be more present in the session. All of those things I think really help bring it alive.
That really speaks to the kind of experiential part of ACT.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's the sort of the doing, the flowing with, rather than the sort of the heady talking about, which can be really easy to
Yeah.
slip into at times. This kind of leads us to, people often, I think, find this the more complicated process. Sometimes I think it's the most interesting, self as context. How do you tackle this? What's your favorite ways of addressing bringing self as context alive?
I think some kind of container metaphor, and it doesn't really matter what it is, and it's always best if it's co-produced with the client, but some kind of metaphor that helps people relate to the idea that they are a container for their experience. So rather than like, I am a loser, because is kind of saying that you are the loser. Whereas what's really going on is that there's you having this thought that you're a loser. So some kind of container. So classic ones would be like the sky and the weather. Sort of recognizing the idea that the sky is not the weather. The sky is the place where the weather happens. It's like the container for the weather. But you can anything where one thing contains something else, and if it's more relevant to the client's personal life, then the better for that, I think. But yeah, something that illustrates that container relationship.
Nice. Okay. There we go. There's a little taster then of tools and techniques for the different aspects of working with an act.